Today we're weaving a scarf with our handspun yarn. You'll need your Ashford rigid heddle loom along with their 2.5 dent reed, which you can purchase through Thread Collective. You'll also need the yarn that you spun along with me in our last tutorial video, and your standard rigid heddle supplies such as warp separator sticks, a shuttle, and a heddle threader sleigh hook, which I've got the Thread Collective versions of here. So you'll be warping up your loom as you normally would. I measured mine out to about 1.6 meters. This scarf is just one of my children, so it didn't need to be quite as long. And I wove it to around 6 inches wide. So depending on how much yarn you ended up making, you might like to make yours wider, you might like to make it longer or shorter. It's completely up to you. But measure your reed, find your center point, and then work out from there to find where your start and finish needs to be for your scarf. And then simply warp up as you normally would. The 2.5 dent reed is much like any of the other reeds for a rigid heddle loom. It just has much larger dents and eyes, which means that you can fit bulky yarns such as this through, or you could even use some of your art yarns, or you might like to use a finer warp with chunky weft yarns, because you can get your spacing wide enough that you can still create a beautiful drapey cloth with those chunky experimental yarns that you might have lying around. This particular yarn, you can watch us spin that up in the last tutorial video, and we'll link that below for you. It's around 7 wraps per inch for the most part. There is a little bit of variability. In weaving, I don't mind this because it adds a little bit of textural interest to the work. But I did choose not to go with the direct sort of 5 wraps per inch that might normally be recommended for a balanced weave, using a 2.5 dent reed in a plain weave, just because I wanted it to still have some nice drape to it. So a lot of people, when they're weaving these big chunky scarves, they aren't leaving enough room for movement in the finished piece, and it creates a very structural kind of garment. If that's something that you want, by all means use a heavier weight yarn for this project. All right, winding onto our back beam, making sure that we use plenty of our warp separator sticks. This helps stop your warp from spreading as you wind on. So they might not seem like it, but they are important. They also really help keep our threads separate in sticky warps. Every now and then, I'm just using my hands to make sure tension is even. I do not comb with my fingers. I just simply go with handfuls of and rub my hands through that way. Now it's time to thread the reed properly. So I've managed to separate my threads out already so that it makes this step a little bit easier to thread the eyes. Taking one strand from each of the slots and popping one into the eye to the right hand side of it. And just another angle so that you can see how I'm doing that. And you can also see on the right hand side how I wind my stick shuttles. And I like to wind my stick shuttles in this way so that I can fit sort of the most yarn on without it impacting my shed or getting. Okay, and then we can start weaving. So I do a couple of picks and then I'll hem stitch on the loom. The length of your fringe is completely up to you. Leave more space before you start weaving if you want a really long fringe or if you wish to twist your fringe. Keep in mind that you can also use where you've tied your knots. And so with my hem stitching, I'm doing groups of 3. This worked out evenly for my scarf. We do have other tutorials on hem stitching as well. And just threading my needle back through and down into one of the fringes, just for some extra security. And now I can resume weaving. So a really good rule of thumb is, in a nice balanced weave, is to just aim to have like little square windows of light between all of your intersecting yarns. So if they're rectangle, you might be beating too hard, depending on which way the rectangle is facing, or you may not be beating hard enough if they're sort of tall, skinny rectangles. And you can see that by using this mild hand spun, you get a really cool kind of patterning, even though it's just a simple plain weave. We also have a little bit of texture from that slight variability of the yarn. Showing you guys a different angle. Making sure not to draw it in too hard, and also making sure with each pass that I have a nice sort of 45-degree plus angle of yarn. And when I don't have that, you can see that I'm manually adjusting that. And that makes sure that I have enough yarn to draw back into the shed as needed when I beat, so that it doesn't inadvertently lead to more drawing on my edges. Another thing to note is if you don't have that angle and you're sort of pulling the yarn or shuttle back down towards yourself, you'll start getting what are commonly known as frowny face sort of edges. So to just fix that, make sure you're getting that angle. And the beauty of this kind of project, especially using Handspun, is it's as absolutely unique as you want it to be. And just winding a fresh shuttle. And this is how I tuck my ends in. So you can see that I've wrapped it around the edge thread, beating it into place. They're in the same shed. And after I've woven a few more picks, I can cut those off nice and close to the fabric, and it really won't be noticeable after it's had a soak. You can see just how quickly that fabric is building up, being such a chunky yarn, and with that low dent per inch. So super fun, quick project. These would make excellent gifts year round. You could do table runners, cowls, obviously more scarves. You could do wall hangings in this manner. And I'll just show you guys how to hem stitch again shortly as well. General rule of thumb, leave about 3 times the width of your project for hem stitching. I was a little bit short, but it was still enough to get through this. So same as the first end, going under 3 threads each time, and I'm coming up to weft picks in. That's completely personal preference though. You could do 1 pick, you could do 4. And then we're ready to chop it off. And for the most fun part of the weaving, unrolling it and having a look at that beautiful fabric that we made. As I said, I've just done a fairly short scarf because it's for a little, and I just really wanted to show you how this reed worked and kind of the size yarn you could use. But look at that drape. It is so cushy. It is comfy. I just love it.